One aspect of security in a network environment has to do with digital security. Now, digital security is how we combat a number of threats to our network, to our data, to our systems. In a separate video in the course, we talked about restricting physical access and so forth. With digital security, we're counting on our physical security to be in place, and understand digital security is dependent upon strong physical security. And when it comes to digital security, obviously, this can extend into things like authentication and so forth. But for the purposes of the A+ exam, let's just talk about authentication. This is a foundational aspect of digital security. Authentication is usually based on a password. In some cases, you may have smart cards, you may have security dongles that you have to physically connect to a computer to log in. But for the most part, passwords are what we're going to use. Now, passwords should be non-dictionary words with symbols, mixed case, numbers, those sorts of things. Do not use words that people can very easily figure out. I've been on enough security investigations before with companies that I could look at someone's desk and guess the password in just a few moments. You shouldn't use spouse names, children's names, those sorts of things. Your passwords should never, ever be written down, even if you plan to do the ultimate in security, which is tape it on the bottom of your keyboard. That's the first place everybody looks. So don't ever write them down. Don't try to hide them. You don't ever, under any circumstance, share your password, not even to a visiting administrator who's there to perform some sort of help desk utility. So passwords are never shared. We'll talk about why a little bit later on. File systems should always use NTFS. Watch for this on the exam. If you have a choice between FAT, FAT32, or NTFS, if security is a concern, NTFS is the only answer. The only time you would use FAT or FAT32 is for backward compatibility to older Windows systems. That's the only reason. Any other time you should be using NTFS. Not FAT or FAT32. Those are not secure file systems. Now, security policies for your organization should be well-designed and uniformly applied. The way Microsoft security policies are set up, we've looked at a couple of them, local security policy, and hinted strongly toward similarities between that and then group policy at the Active Directory domain level. But all of Microsoft's policy tools give you the ability to configure all the policy settings that you want and then export those and import them into another computer. Having everybody uniformly locked down is a very, very strong enhancement to your security plan. You also should probably have a data classification and compliance policy, and documentation for that should be readily available and in place. And by data classification, you should classify all the data that's in your organization and the level of security it deserves or requires. There is proprietary information that you simply cannot afford to let get out of your possession for legal reasons, for business operational reasons, for competitive reasons, those sorts of things. So you want to classify that as top secret, high security, whatever you want to call it, and then spell out in the compliance policy how users should treat that data. Information should never, ever be shared over the phone unless you're absolutely sure of the person you're talking to. Now, again, when we do digital classifications or we do classifications of our data, we will sometimes say, look, I don't care who you're talking to and how sure you know who it is. You simply do not talk about this topic over the telephone. Number one, it is possible you could be tricked into talking to someone other than who you really believe it is. But the bigger risk is someone tapping that line, listening in, whatever. So be very careful with that. Keep in mind, social engineering will defeat the strongest digital or physical security plan out there. Social engineering is a situation where I can call you up and just socially loosen you up. I can make you think that I work there. I can make you think that I know the owner, the president, the vice president, whatever, and get just a little bit of information from you. Call someone else. Now I look even more knowledgeable. And at some point, somebody coughs up some pretty significant information that I can use to either break through physical security or access the system. Digital security really has to do with your digital identity and identification on the network and social engineering. So watch for these aspects on the exam as well.